Have you ever thought about, before walking out of work, to just go into the server room and just pull one plug out? And that will just make you happy. Have you ever thought about that? Or let's pull this one. What if you just go where the switches and hubs are for the network connection and just pull out all the cables? How would that? Have you ever thought about that? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Well, then you are part of the problem. CISO took out a report about employee sabotage, and it has become bad. But before that, hello everyone, Vic here. Today we will be talking about the CISO reports on uptake in employee IT sabotage, and we have Takealot moving into new regions in South Africa. Then we have Jones getting a warning from regulators, and finally we'll be talking about FNB having an outage again. This time it was a bit huge. Anyway, let's jump into it, shall we? CISO took out a report in ICT sabotage, and it was shown that there was a growth in increase in IT sabotage. There was an interview done by IT Web to Dr. Nkose Khumalo, and he did talk about how much this has become a problem. Firstly, he explained what is this concept of IT sabotage.
Yeah, look, so the respondents that were polled this year, 2024, for the first time, because this is not the first time this survey was done, and for the first time in 2024, we saw IT sabotage coming up as one of the incidents that are reported in the last 12 months by the respondents. So I found it quite interesting that now, 6% of the respondents are reporting it as something that has obviously, started to raise its head. And in essence, IT sabotage is a human facilitated incident. Internal staff members or contractors passing by a server environment, pulling out the plug. It's as simple as that.
Why?
I cannot put it. It's basically spiteful activities. It's sabotage. In essence, that's what it is. And people have different reasons why they do that. But in essence, it does happen.
Now, as he explained all the problems in IC sabotage, he went into another section where we talked about how can you prevent these problems from happening. That's where the no trust rule comes in. As for what he said specifically, here it is.
But is there something that companies can do?
Of course, and that's why we talk about making sure that from a risk management point of view, you put mitigations in place to try and cover yourself against these kind of things. In business, you have to be able to identify areas that are mission critical and make sure that you protect the business. Access control. You have to embrace a posture as a business where you trust no one.
Now that you understand how the problem can be mitigated, the problem went into how are we so vulnerable in South Africa, mainly because South Africa is part of the top countries in the world where they can be hacked, and we have one of the most growing industries in telecommunication and other industries, especially if you look at Cape Town and Johannesburg. You will notice that we have a growing number of these environments where IT is the main focus on it. So that is just an update on that environment. So as an employee as well, just saying, don't sabotage IT things at work before you leave. At least just steal some coffee. No, I didn't say that. I mean, just take your bag and leave properly, and just don't sabotage IT things. On a good note, let's jump back to good news now. Remember when we talked about Takealot now, which was just introduced last year in South Africa? It was mainly introduced in different regions in South Africa just as a trial period. It was mainly Cape Town where it was introduced as a trial run. Now the good news is, now it has been planned to be moved to Pretoria, which is a whole different region, and more people have access. So now more people will get the 1 hour delivery. Now Takealot now is moving into more regions. The expansion will start in July next month. People in Pretoria, if you want to use the Takealot now feature, will be coming to you in July. For those who didn't know, you can actually go to jail for driving a drone in the wrong place, or in the wrong way, or in the wrong time, or just get a fine of 50,000, or both. So let's talk about the rules and regulations for having a drone and where you can drive a drone. Firstly, you need to know that drones were first regulated in South Africa in May 2015. The first regulation was gazetted on the 8th Amendment of the Civil Aviation Regulation. So that's where the first regulation started from. If you want to look for the specific regulation, it's part of 101. There is a difference for private and commercial use of drones. Most people just use them for private use, just playing around, and for their kids to play around with the drone. So that is normally fine. You don't get into much trouble about that. But once you go into the commercial use of the drones, then that's where the problem starts to come in. So private use normally does not require you to have a license or to register a drone. However, the private operators must abide by the safety guidelines and regulations to ensure safety and responsible flying. Let's first talk about what the guidelines are for private use. The first one is maintaining visual line of sight. So you always have to keep your sight on the drone and know where it is at all times. The second one is altitude limit. The drone should not be flown over 120 meters above ground. The third one is avoid obstacles. Operators may stay clear of obstacles such as building, trees, and power lines. The next one is distance from people and property. So you always have to keep your drone a distance away from property, which is about 50 meters away. The last one would be restricted areas. Drones should not be flown over populated areas, national park, or sensitive infrastructure. So always keep those in mind. These are just the safety guidelines for private use. So what happens if you want to go for the commercial use of the drone? The commercial use, now you have to follow the regulations. Firstly, you need to register the drone under Part 1 of the Civil Aviation Regulation and acquire a remote pilot license. On top of registering the drone operator also needs to follow specific certifications and have different licenses. So What are those certifications and licenses? There are 4 of them, and there is the Air Service License, the RSPS Operation Certificate, the RSPA Letter of Approval, Remote Pilot License. All those 4 you need to have them before having commercial use of the drone. But there are criticism on how you obtain the license as well. As the expert said, criticism over the license process, which closely aligns with a manner of aircraft licensing requirements, includes that to over restrict or burdensome for so many drone users. So now that the rules have been stated above, so what happens to those who don't listen to the rules or don't follow the rules per se? So failure to adhere to the civil aviation regulations, people may face severe penalties such as sentence to prison up to 10 years, a fine of 50,000 or just both. And some of these drone operators may face liabilities from other government agencies. Not to scare new drone operators or people who are planning to buy drones, these are just mostly regulations that have been there for a while, but they've been updated and currently are having these updates, so that's why I spoke on them now. And not only South Africa has been looking at updating and trying to balance these regulations, also US, Canada and EU have been trying to develop more regulations for the drones. So the framework is there and everything is there, but if you want to buy a drone or have it for your own private use, it is still fine. So what are your thoughts on these regulations? Do you think they're too tough, too easy, or do you just want to drive a drone? FNB has an outage again this year on the services. This happened on the 29th June, which was Saturday, from around 12:30 in the morning. A lot of people were reporting and they were frustrated. As you can see from X, where most people were just frustrated. Some were saying their cards are declining. Some people were saying they can't spend their money now, it's not working. Everything was just a mess during this time. So what are the stats on this reporting? Down detectors detects the outage in different services. So let's look at the stats that were there. It was written that 59% of the reports on down detects were related to online banking, 29 were related to credit card payments, and 11 were related to online issues. However, in all these stats, online login for FNB web-based online banking platforms appeared to be unaffected. Most people were having an error of response on code 5 error. FNB appears to be done just by multiple payments, sometimes different payments, were reporting to respond code 5 on the machine. But there was an update after 2. Customers were now able to use their card, so the problem was fixed from 2 o'clock, and then they were fine after that. FNB also acknowledged the issue and sent an SMS to all their customers. They said, "We are aware of the inconvenience experienced when trying to use the card on 29 of June 2024. The issue is currently being investigated, and any charges to be imparted to the customer will be revised. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause." FNB confirmed that the card purchases were having a problem, but still advised that the online banking and ATM were unaffected. They added again on top of their previous statement was that the issue has since been revised. We apologize for our inconvenience. So for FNB users, now everything will be fine during the week as well. And FNB did say sorry for that inconvenience. So use your app well. And all those people that got extra charges or were charged double, FNB will give you back that money. So that is the update on that. So what do you think about the topics today? If you like my content, please subscribe, click that like button. Anyway, keep on grinding and level up.